The jury selection process is proceeding slowly and deliberately in the case of Sheriff Don Rystrom. Only one juror was seated as of the noon recess today, that following several hours of extensive questioning. Rystrom is charged with 2 felonies. The sheriff faces one charge of perjury and another of solicitation to commit perjury. Both charges surround the sworn testimony given to state police criminal investigators. Additionally, Rystrom is charged with one misdemeanor count of theft by deception. Prosecutor David Klinger has also filed a petition to remove Rystrom from office for the alleged violations. Klinger alleges that Rystrom purchased a car at a county auction and conspired to pay less than he actually bid, then sold it for a profit, and later lied about the incident to investigators. The violations allegedly occurred over a period of time from mid-October to mid-December of last year. The sheriff has denied all of the charges against him. Rystrom's attorney, Bobby Odom of Fayetteville, questioned prospective jurors about what pretrial publicity, if any, they may have seen or read. He also asked if the fact that Prosecutor Klinger is a Democrat and the sheriff a Republican would bias them in any way. As of late this afternoon, only 3 jurors had been seated in the case, with individual voir dire expected to continue in the morning.
Benton County Sheriff Don Rystrom said today that the charges against him were the result of a political witch hunt. Rystrom is a Republican, while Prosecutor David Klinger is a Democrat. Rystrom is accused of illegally buying a motorcycle and car at 2 separate sheriff's auctions, of paying less than he bid for the car, and of lying under oath about the incidents during the prosecutor's investigation. He was suspended from office pending the outcome of this trial. If convicted, he faces as much as 10 years in prison. In his testimony today, Rystrom disputed statements made by 2 key prosecution witnesses, Bill Moore and Bobby Lyons. Rystrom said that Moore was in charge of civil executions for the sheriff's department and claimed that Moore had assured him that it was legal for the sheriff's family to bid at auction.
Klinger outlined several instances in which he said the sheriff acted improperly, using the authority of his office to enrich his own financial position. Beginning with a December 1982 sale, Klinger claims there were several times when Sheriff Rystrom, ignoring the advice of his deputies, bid on items that were on the auction block. The prosecutor promised the jurors that they would hear the taped statements Rystrom gave state police investigators, statements in which Klinger says Rystrom perjured himself 17 or 18 separate times. Defense attorney Don Elliott told the jury that Rystrom is a devoted family man who would not jeopardize his reputation or a 12-year law enforcement career. Elliott says Rystrom was acting on the advice of the prosecutor's office when, in October of last year, the sheriff bid on and purchased a 1971 Mercury, allegedly on behalf of his wife. Elliott flatly denied the charge that Rystrom ever encouraged anybody to perjure themselves during the subsequent investigation of that sale. Civil Sergeant Virginia Deo testified that she personally warned the sheriff that it was illegal for him to bid at a sheriff's sale, but that her warnings went unheeded. She also said that there was more than one instance when the sheriff's fee for executing a sale was waived.
Defense testimony is expected to conclude today, and the case could go to the jury as early as tomorrow afternoon. In Bentonville, this is Steve Voorhees reporting for the News People.
In his closing arguments, Prosecutor David Klinger said he never once heard a direct, straight answer from Sheriff Don Rystrom during the more than 5 hours that Rystrom was on the stand yesterday. Klinger told the 7-woman, 5-man jury to utilize their common sense when reaching a verdict and reminded the jurors that Don Rystrom admitted that he knew it was wrong for him to participate at county execution sales. Klinger characterized the sheriff's version of events as nothing more than an intentional ruse designed to circumvent the law. Defense attorney Jeff Duty said the entire case was a tragedy of confusion. Duty said it was obvious to him that there is an ongoing feud between Klinger and Rystrom's offices. Duty insisted that Rystrom told the truth on the stand and demanded to know who Rystrom's true accusers are. Attorney Bobby Odom reminded the jury that this is an election year and that Klinger and Rystrom are members of opposing parties. In his rebuttal, Klinger said that politics didn't make Don Rystrom lie or steal, and he asked the jurors to send a message to all elected officials in Benton County. If convicted, Rystrom faces a maximum of 17 years in prison and up to $23,000 in fines. From Bentonville, Mike Thomas reporting for the News People. Upon hearing the verdict and recommended sentences, Mrs. Bonnie Rystrom fainted and had to be carried from the courtroom. She was taken by ambulance to Bates Hospital and was accompanied by her husband. After deliberating for just over 4 hours, the 7-woman, 5-man jury tonight returned a guilty verdict on all 5 counts which Don Rystrom faced. On the most serious charge, that of perjury, the jury recommended a prison term of 3 years and the maximum fine of $10,000. The $10,000 maximum was again recommended on the charge of solicitation of perjury. The jury set a $1,000 fine for each of the remaining counts, including that of theft by deception. The total sentence, 3 years and $23,000 in fines.
It's hard to say in this type of case that there's any pleasure coming from it. I believe the justice system has worked. One of the duties of the prosecuting attorney is to, when they have evidence of improper conduct in office, to gather that evidence and present it to a jury. That's what we did.
Following his reaction to the verdict, Klinger had this to say about the past 7 days of testimony.
I did form the opinion that the defendant's testimony itself, including cross-examination, did not help their case. And all I can say is that I had the impression during his testimony that he was evasive, and I feel that the verdict reflects that that was transmitted to the jury.
From Bentonville, Mike Thomas reporting for the News People.
Bonnie Rystrom, the former sheriff's wife, says the family is doing everything possible to pay the county the $23,000 fine levied against her husband.
We've been trying to sell some land. We've been trying to sell the blue silo, but it's just not selling. Nobody's buying.
The Rystrom's 16-year-old daughter, Dawn, has offered to sell her cattle in order to keep her father out of jail. The former sheriff was convicted of perjury and solicitation of perjury 6 months ago, along with 3 lesser charges. Rystrom was fined and given a suspended sentence. Yesterday, he was ordered to pay the fine or go to jail. The county could then sell his property to satisfy the obligation. Rystrom owns this farm near Bentonville. He's put some of the acreage up for sale in order to pay what he owes. Judge Enfield said yesterday, although Rystrom has made an effort to sell the property, he says it's the court's responsibility to insist on speedy payment.
Well, you have to be a little hurt. Not angry, hurt.
For what reason?
I feel myself that he was the best sheriff that Benton County ever had.
Judge Enfield says the delay of payment has denied the county swift justice, as well as interest on the $23,000. Rystrom has until November 1st to pay the fine. Reporting for the News People from Bentonville, I'm Wendy Burkeen. Patrolman Ray Fine was shot 3 times last night by a gunman who entered the Rogers Police Department and began shooting.
The officer Fine that was shot, from what information I can gather, stood up to ask if he could help him, and at that time, without warning, Mr. Parker shot him.
After Parker opened fire, police say the wounded officer and the dispatcher on duty locked themselves into this room. The dispatcher then kicked out the window and ran for help. Police say the incident began when Parker allegedly shot and killed James and Sandra Warren, the parents of his ex-wife, at their home in Rogers. Police say the couple's daughter escaped through a back door. Parker then kidnapped his ex-wife Pam Warren from her home. The two made their way to the Rogers Police Department, where Parker allegedly opened fire on Officer Fine. Before sniper fire wounded the gunman, police say Parker shot his ex-wife in the chest. After a 3-hour standoff with police, Parker surrendered. Friends of the Warren family said today that Parker was unpredictable and hostile. Although it's not yet known just why he shot the couple, some say Parker blamed the family for his divorce. Officer Fine is listed in stable condition and improving in a Rogers hospital. Warren's condition has been changed from fair to critical, and the gunman, Freddie Parker, is listed in fair condition. An investigation of the incident is underway. Reporting for the News People from Rogers, I'm Wendy Burkeen.
Frankie Parker appeared calm today as Judge William Enfield read the charges against him. 2 counts of capital murder for the shooting deaths of James and Sandra Warren, 1 count of attempted capital murder for the shooting of Rogers policeman Ray Fine, 1 count of kidnapping and 1 count of attempted first-degree murder for the abduction and shooting of Pam Warren, and 2 counts of burglary for breaking into the Rogers police station. After hearing the charges, Parker entered a plea of not guilty. Security was unusually tight at the Benton County Courthouse. Each spectator was searched before being admitted to the courtroom, and Parker was kept under heavy guard throughout the brief proceedings.
Without going into detail, I can say that there have been things brought to our attention which we felt that necessitated the heightened security. Obviously, with this type of case, you're going to have it anyway, and there have been some matters that brought to our attention, and as well as the sheriff's, that we felt precautions were necessary.
Although officials declined to comment on the exact reasons for the extra security, sources say the precautions were taken as a result of threats from Parker and other outside individuals. Parker has been held without bond since his arrest November 5th, and today Judge Enfield again refused to allow bail in this case. Parker's next court appearance will be April 8th, at which time the judge is expected to set a trial date. In Bentonville, this is Steve Voorhees reporting for the News People.
The Benton County jury deliberated for only 40 minutes this afternoon before finding Frank Parker guilty on all charges. The 5-man, 7-woman jury found Parker unanimously guilty on all 8 counts, which included capital murder, attempted first-degree murder, burglary, and kidnapping. During the course of the 5-day trial, defense attorneys attempted to show Parker was insane on the night of the rampage, claiming Parker suffered severe emotional stress, chronic drug use, and a history of psychological problems combined to make Parker mentally deranged. Prosecuting attorney David Klinger says he was worried the jury being bogged down over Parker's emotional state or questions of legal sanity, but says clinical psychologist Dr. David Pritchard did a good job showing Parker was competent and knew what he was doing in November of 1984.
These personality traits do not measure up to a major mental disease or defect, and in no way influenced the things that he did on the day of the murders and the shootings. They just didn't play a significant part in preventing him from recognizing right from wrong.
Capital murder is punishable by either life in prison without parole or the death penalty. The prosecution is asking for the death penalty in the case. In Bentonville, Wes Mills for the News People.
Gary Allen Scobie is accused of abducting a 17-year-old West Fork woman at gunpoint on October 8th. He allegedly forced her to drive him to the Lake Weddington area, took money from her, and had unlawful sexual contact before she escaped from the car. That abduction followed the pattern of 2 other kidnappings that occurred in late spring of this year. In both those cases, the victims were allegedly forced to drive to a dirt road west of Farmington, where they were raped. Those 2 incidents sparked the most extensive criminal investigation in Fayetteville in at least a decade. Police received hundreds of calls with information about possible suspects, and both city and Washington County investigators spent hundreds of man-hours on the case.
For approximately 3 weeks, we had a surveillance of 2 officers in that area. We canvassed half a mile radius of that neighborhood.
But investigators say the first real break in the case came from a confidential informant, described as the victim of a rape that was never reported, but that occurred before the series of Fayetteville abductions. The woman reportedly told police that she had seen Scobie and recognized him as her assailant. Acting on this tip, investigators showed a picture of Scobie to the most recent victim. She reportedly recognized him, then picked his photograph again from nearly 30 others. Scobie was arrested at his home last Thursday night. So far, however, police have not been able to tie Scobie to the 2 other abductions. One victim reportedly said Scobie was not her assailant. Police say the other victim has moved out of state and has not yet been contacted. Gary Scobie is a 21-year veteran of the U.S. Forest Service and has worked at Lake Weddington as a forestry technician for 12 years. When he appeared for his arraignment today, his wife and 2 children were with him. If he is found guilty of the charges against him, he could face a penalty of life in prison. In Fayetteville, this is Steve Voorhees reporting for the News People. The Perry's jewelry store in Fayetteville was robbed on March 3, 1982. According to police, the Perry family were held hostage in their home for about 10 hours by 3 gunmen on the night before the robbery. 2 of the men then forced Robert Perry to open his store. The men reportedly removed more than $50,000 in jewelry and cash and left Perry handcuffed in his building. His wife and son were also left handcuffed at their home. Today's arrest followed almost 2 years of investigation by the FBI, state police, and Fayetteville police. Robert Perry said today that he was naturally elated to learn that police had a suspect in custody.
Sometime after 10:30 this morning, Bob Jones called, and the minute he called, I just jumped 6 feet high. Just happy.
Perry said that he didn't know many of the details of today's arrest and so far hasn't even seen the suspect. But he described the years since the robbery as a nightmare and said he hopes that that nightmare will be over now that a suspect has been arrested. He said he's grateful to all of the police investigators who've worked so long on the case.
It seems like a lifetime working and never giving up, and I just have the highest regard for all of the cooperation that the various police units had working together in our behalf. And today's one of the happiest days of my life. It's nothing's ever been better.
In Fayetteville, this is Steve Voorhees reporting for the News People. 30-year-old Terry Brannon pleaded not guilty today in Washington County Circuit Court to charges of aggravated robbery, kidnapping, theft of property, and possession of amphetamine with intent to deliver. Brannon, who is reportedly on parole from Mississippi, faces possible life sentences on 6 separate counts in connection with the 1982 robbery of Perry's Jewelry in Fayetteville. When he was arrested in Harrison on Friday, Brannon was using the name William H. Frank. Authorities say they didn't learn his true identity until last night, when Mississippi authorities identified his fingerprints. Brannon allegedly used a second alias, John Newland, while living in Arkansas. At a press conference this morning, FBI Special Agent James Blassingame said that police had searched a storage unit in Springdale, allegedly rented under the name of John Newland, and they had confiscated more than 7 pounds of the drug amphetamine.
A search warrant was executed yesterday at this mini warehouse, and over $500,000 in amphetamines were recovered.
Circuit Judge Malin Gibson today ordered Brannon held without bond, pending a hearing to decide what bail should be set. Brannon's trial has been tentatively scheduled for September 5th. In Fayetteville, this is Steve Voorhees reporting for the News People. 51-year-old Louis Riccardi Jr. arrived to Washington County Circuit Court today with his 2 attorneys to fight charges that he was an accomplice in the 1982 Perry's Jewelry Store robbery. Riccardi is charged with 3 counts of kidnapping, 3 counts of aggravated robbery, and 2 counts of theft of property. If convicted, he could face life in prison. The state's chief witness in the trial is expected to be 31-year-old Terry Brannon, who has already pleaded guilty to taking part in the robbery. Brannon is expected to testify that Riccardi was one of the 3 men who abducted the Perry family, held them prisoner in their home for 10 hours, forced Mr. Perry to open his store, and then robbed it. Prosecutor Kim Smith says that a police informer, now living under the Federal Witness Protection Program, will also testify against Riccardi. Although the Perrys were able to describe 2 of their abductors to police, those descriptions don't fit Riccardi, and he has denied all along that he took part in the robbery. His attorneys indicated today that they will try to show that the state's chief witnesses are lying to get lighter sentences for themselves. In Fayetteville, this is Steve Voorhees reporting for the News People.
It took investigators 3 years to bring Louis Riccardi Jr. to trial. It took a jury 53 minutes to convict him. The 6-man, 6-woman panel found Riccardi guilty of 3 counts of aggravated robbery, 3 counts of kidnapping, and 2 counts of theft of property. After the verdict was read, the Perrys shared with reporters their sense of relief and credited authorities for a job well done. Riccardi never testified in his own defense, and neither did anyone else. The defense rested its case without calling a single witness to the stand. Prosecutor Kim Smith said that came as no surprise to him, and that he too was pleased with the verdict.
I thought it was a very proper verdict under the evidence. I thought we had lots of evidence to show his guilt in connection with the robbery and kidnapping and theft. I was very pleased to receive the verdict, and especially in the short time that it took.
Riccardi was sentenced to life in prison for each of the 3 aggravated robbery charges, plus 30 years and a $15,000 fine for each of 3 counts of kidnapping, and 30 years and a $15,000 fine for each of 2 theft of property charges. Each of the sentences is set to run consecutively. Judge Malin Gibson also set Riccardi's appeal bond at $500,000. In Fayetteville, Mike Thomas for the News People.
The Lewis Plaza apartment complex is like a ghost town today. The sorrow, the fear, and the anger are more oppressive than the summer heat. Saturday afternoon, the body of 4-year-old Barbara Thompson was found in a wooded area behind Lewis Plaza. Her clothes were torn, her head reportedly beaten in with a rock. On a hot summer afternoon, this playground is usually packed with children, but not since Saturday. The children are silent, the playground is empty, the parents, afraid.
I'm moving out about a week and a half.
How come?
They just don't want me to be there. They 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 don't want me to be there. Because I won't let my little boy outside. It's too dangerous.
You've got 2 kids? 2. You letting them out?
Mm-mm. Just she's going up there to borrow something other from her cousin. That's as far as she goes. We're watching.
I'm not going to let him rip and run around the playground by himself no more. It's too dangerous.
Think it could happen again?
Sure it could, to anybody's child.
The people who knew Barbara Thompson also know her alleged killer, 15-year-old Chris Segerstrom. The boy reportedly has a long record of juvenile offenses, but prosecutors say that this time he will be tried as an adult. In Fayetteville, this is Steve Voorhees reporting for the News People. 16-year-old Christopher Segerstrom showed no emotion as he was brought to the Washington County Courthouse this morning, but as jury selection got underway, he reportedly broke down and wept several times. Although he was only 15 at the time of his arrest, Segerstrom was charged as an adult with capital murder. Prosecutor Andrew Zeiser is not asking for the death penalty in this case. However, if Segerstrom is convicted of capital murder, he still faces the maximum penalty of life in prison without parole. Segerstrom reportedly has a history of mental problems, and defense attorneys considered entering an insanity plea for their client. The defense attempted to postpone today's trial so Segerstrom could undergo additional psychiatric tests, but Judge Malin Gibson denied that motion. Testimony in the case is due to start tomorrow, with prosecutors predicting that the trial will last at least 3 days. In Fayetteville, this is Steve Voorhees reporting for the News People. In his statement to police, Segerstrom admitted luring 4-year-old Barbara Thompson to a wooded area where he knocked her down, then raped her using a large stick. Segerstrom described nearly smothering the girl to stop her from struggling. He said he then laid a heavy rock on her back to hold her down. Segerstrom's confession was read in open court over defense objections by Fayetteville Police Sergeant Mike Mitchell. Segerstrom concluded his statement by saying, quote, "I didn't mean to kill Barbie. I'm sorry." The confession was the centerpiece in the state's case against Segerstrom, as prosecutor Andrew Zeiser worked to prove the youth guilty of capital murder. It appears that defense attorneys will try to persuade the jury that if Segerstrom is guilty, he isn't guilty of capital murder. The defense contends that the slaying was accidental and that the sexual attack on Barbara Thompson doesn't fit the legal definition of rape. Under the law, an act of rape must be performed for sexual gratification, and defense attorneys say this wasn't the case with Segerstrom. Also, in his confession, Segerstrom told police he dropped the heavy rock on his foot and apparently didn't realize that it had hit the child's head. In Fayetteville, this is Steve Voorhees reporting for the News People. Chris Segerstrom's guilt or innocence was never really an issue in the trial. Defense attorney Terry Crabtree called no witnesses and offered no evidence in the trial. The real issue for the jury was whether to convict Segerstrom of capital murder or find him guilty of a lesser charge. The jury deliberated less than 2 hours before finding Segerstrom guilty of capital murder. Following the verdict, Judge Malin Gibson immediately sentenced Segerstrom to life in prison without parole. Barbara Thompson's parents had asked the state not to seek the death penalty against Segerstrom. Today they said that life imprisonment is a harsher punishment.
I think he'll have more time to reflect on what he's done and maybe pay for it a little bit more.
The family thanked the prosecutor outside the courtroom. Zeiser told reporters he was pleased with the jury's verdict. In Fayetteville, this is Steve Voorhees reporting for the News People.
Dana Steedham's gray Omni was found last Wednesday on Highway 71 near Wellington around 6:30 a.m. Detectives brought the car back today so the press could take pictures of it and hopefully someone would remember seeing it last week and call. The last time anyone saw Dana was exactly 1 week ago today, shopping at this Bella Vista grocery store. Police found the sales receipt in her car, so they know she was here at 3:17 that afternoon. Her car was not seen again until the next morning. Some of the clothing Dana keeps inside the car was found just up the road from the highway. Police dogs were brought here but found nothing. What baffles police is why the car was parked heading south when both her and her parents' house is the other way.
To get some help from the public on this one, it's going to be pretty hard to solve, and that's why we're hoping somebody might have seen the vehicle or seen Dana buy the car or seen somebody possibly pick her up or give her a ride or something like that. Any kind of help, we can sure use it.
As expected, Dana's family is still in shock. They say she is the kind of girl who would call if she was going to be just 5 minutes late for anything.
I just don't know. Something's happened to my kid and we're just going home.
The Benton County Sheriff's Department pulled out all the stops today in their search for 18-year-old Dana Stidham of Centerton. Up until yesterday, there had been few clues in the case. Then about a mile from where her car was found, neighborhood dogs returned from the woods with her wallet. So today, a 50-man search crew was called out to comb the area.
He might be sure that there's no body up in there, but let's look for some more evidence up here.
More evidence was found, her checkbook. Then about an hour later, and not far from where the checkbook was found, more clues in the riddle. This time the articles were found in a gully and apparently had washed down from the rain.
Oh, we got a driver's license, high school diploma. Looks like some personal pictures.
It appears the driver's license, checkbook, and pictures were thrown out along the road from a passing car, but no one knows that for sure. Since the girl's disappearance, police also haven't been sure if Stidham was kidnapped or just running away. Now, after finding some of her belongings, they fear the worst.
If she was okay and was on her own free will, why would she be throwing articles from her purse out or leaving them around where they could be found?
The search was called off around 4 this afternoon. Next, Sheriff Lee will examine everything found today and see if it points to her whereabouts. If not, they plan to search farther into the woods. Reporting from Bella Vista, I'm Brian Shipman for the News People.
Dana Stidham had lived in an apartment on her own for only a few months. Then she disappeared July 25th. Leads continue to come in, but a lot are turning out to be local gossip.
There's a vicious rumor that we found the body and we're hiding it for one reason or another. They're cruel rumors, and I really wish the people who start these rumors would think what this could be doing to the family.
But now there's an added incentive for people to come forth with information about Stidham. A local company has put up $5,000 for information about her whereabouts.
And you know where Miss Stidham is, if she is alive, or if you know where she is, if she is not alive, and you know something about this case that we need to know. We can keep your name out of this thing.
Police have combed the area woods with dogs and on horseback. Over the weekend, divers searched Bear Hollow Quarry in Bella Vista, but came up with nothing. But people will continue to look for Stidham until the truth is known. Reporting from Bentonville, Deborah Olson for the News People.
A dental pathologist come in and he positively identified the remains as that of Dana Stidham.
That was the bad news from this afternoon's press conference at the Benton County Sheriff's Office, and so far, that's all there is in the case of Dana Stidham. Bad news. Her remains were found Sunday in a shallow grave near Bella Vista, but she turned up missing 2 months ago. Right now, police don't know why her car was abandoned on Highway 71. They don't know why her belongings were strewn out along the countryside, and worst of all, they don't have any idea who her killer is. Reporting from Bentonville, I'm Brian Shipman for the News People. It's probably the quietest assembly ever in the Gravette High School gymnasium, only the sounds of tears and prayers for those who knew Dana Stidham. Dana was born in Gravette and graduated here last spring. Now that the Stidham case has officially been ruled a homicide, the cause of her death has not been released. Sheriff Andy Lee says that will remain confidential throughout the investigation.
Oh, we're not trying to deliberately hide anything from anybody, but there are some things that during an investigation we have to keep to ourselves until it's all said and done, and in time it'll be known.
Lee could also not comment as to how the investigation was going. Was the murderer a friend, a stranger, or someone passing through the area last July? These are all unanswered questions. The only comfort for family and friends is that with the test out of the way, they can finally lay Dana Linnell Stidham to rest. Reporting from Gravette, I'm Brian Shipman for the News People.
To this day, Dana Stidham's cause of death has not been revealed and no arrests have been made. Thanks again for watching 5 News Plus from wherever you are watching. I'm Darren Bobb reporting for the News People.